Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. In this week's video, we are going to look at 5 modulation tips and tricks so you can elevate your sounds, whether that be just an audio loop or sample or your synth presets. So let's get into it. So the first one we're going to look at is hats. Now, I found that when I listen to music, especially dance music, especially because a lot of people go to Splice for samples or go to another sort of loop website, that people can get a little bit lazy. Now you put a hat loop in, you're like, awesome, that sounds great, and you kind of just call it a day. Where I think you could kind of go a little bit further and kind of add a little bit more interest to your sound. So when someone listens to your song for the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th time, that they're not going to get sick of it, that ear fatigue that you get from just listening to a static loop. So the first one we're going to look at is hats. And for this, this is a very, very simple trick, and it's just adding an LFO to the sample start time. So if I come down to the modulation, and we're going to turn this off to 0. We just have a simple hat. Let's just turn that down just a hair. And you can hear it's just playing the same thing. You can see this is a sample here. And you get that sort of shotgun, just the same thing. And whilst you can put a compressor on there to kind of give it a sort of a pump and kind of add some maybe velocity or something like that in there, there's a really simple trick you can do to add a lot of randomness to it to give it sort of a new fresh sound. So what I've done is I've taken LFO2, and this is the LFO here, and you can do this in any sampler. And I've taken this LFO and I've set it to a random, so you can see there's a lot of different sort of shapes going on there. And then I'm sending that to the sample start time. So if I increase this in now, if I do it a lot, you can hear it's taken bits from all over the place, but we just want sort of to focus on this start section here, because as you can hear, when it gets down to the back sort of part of it, it kind of, there's not much volume there. So we can dial this in. We go about 8.4, maybe a little bit more on that. So we go about 12, and you can see it's taking little snippets from all over the place, and then that gives it that sort of random sound. One thing to keep in mind is you don't get that sort of sharp attack sound that you do if you're using the start of the sample, but if you're using the hats like this, you can kind of get that sort of randomness, but you're still getting the same tone that you want. Really easy trick, and really good to kind of create more interest. Obviously you can dial this right back just to we'll go half of that amount, and you can hear that it is still giving us that effect, but just a lot less. And if you want sort of more to kind of dial in that sort of overall sound. So the next thing that we're going to look at is using again, I've just used a simple sample here. We've just got one shot that I've just pulled across the whole, keyboard. And one thing that I'd like to do is use, again, using that LFO, we've got a square wave LFO to the decay. So if I come across here, I've just made a little simple MIDI pattern. Actually, I'll play the effect here. And what I've done in this is I've sent that LFO as a square wave to the decay. So some of the notes will kind of open a little bit more and some of them won't open as much. So if we come across to this one, and this is just a simple like a downbeat. You can hear some of the notes are playing a little bit longer than other, and all these notes are the same size. If I open up the sampler again, and if I go to the mod, you can see this is the LFO to decay. So if I take that off, you can hear there's no change in that sound, and as I increase that, this is a pretty subtle effect, but it's really good to kind of, if you're not going in and sort of increasing and decreasing the note length, you can kind of put this in to kind of add a little bit more variation across the board. So really simple trick, and you can see that that's opening and closing with this LFO that I've set to like a free, so it's not going to be in sync with anything, and we've just got it going on and off. Super simple effect, but kind of add a little bit more, especially if you're using just a simple one-shot hit for your synth. You can use this to kind of add a bit more variation across the whole pattern. Next is sort of, I got the idea for this from the analog rhythm from Electron, where you can kind of input reverb sends as trig locks, and I really like that, but I like a bit more sort of randomness with it. So for this, we just have this simple drum kit. Nothing too crazy, and then on here I've just got the Infiltrator 2, and I really love this plugin for kind of messing up sounds and kind of giving just sort of randomness and getting crazy sort of sounds with it. I did get this for a little bit of discount from industry discount, but I still really love it, and I would suggest maybe looking into it. It's definitely on the more expensive side when it comes to plugins, but I find that this is like the little happy accident machine that I've been looking for so long. So we can turn this one on. And for this, I've just got a simple reverb send. And then what I've done is I've gone and made this little sequence when these are turning the reverb on and off. And what I've done is I've made sure that it's not in sync with the actual track. So we've got sort of, where are we? We got, it's playing on and off. You can see we've got the loop that goes out for 16 bars, but we've already looped around. So now it's turning those reverbs on in different sections, so to get different effects and whatnot. You can hear that turning on and off. Now you can kind of get this effect by using a reverb send and then just having the bypass turned on and off to maybe turning the effect on and off. But I really like this sort of happy accident machine of just inputting some points where you want that reverb to turn on and then making it a random number where it is cycling. So then as it goes around, it's giving, it's not happening every 16 bars. It's happening sort of maybe 5 bars, and then it will repeat. So then the reverbs will turn on and off in random parts. Next, we have the noise to filter and then LFO to the attack. So we've got two little modulation options in this one. So if we open it up, we've got Serum. And for this, we're gonna just turn off this one. And we can turn off this one as well. So I've just made this really simple pattern. And then what I've done is, if we come across the oscillators, I've grabbed the noise oscillator and I've added it to the filter. So if we come across to the matrix again, and you can hear it really sort of dirties up that sound. And you would have maybe seen me do this on the Novation Peak, where you can send the noise to the filter. And if we come across now, you can see it's giving a lot of modulation here because of this noise is giving this sort of random amounts that we kind of get this sort of, maybe it's from an old cassette or a vinyl or something like that. It's giving that sort of effect there. And then one thing that I like to add on top of that to kind of add a little bit more randomness is sending this LFO to the envelope to a mount, and this envelope is the one that's opening and closing the filter. So I've set this to Hertz so it's not on any grid, and then really slowed it down. You can see really slow amount there. And then one thing that this does is sometimes the envelope will come a little bit quicker, sometimes it will be a little bit slower. Again, it is a little bit of a more subtle effect, but I find that these little things are really good to kind of create a little bit more randomness and a little bit more interest in the track. So what we can do is just increase this all the way, and then we can watch this filter here and then this envelope. So really slow now, and then as it comes down the bottom it starts to speed up again, really slow. And I made sure that the filter is set to free and there's no retrig, so it's just cycling over and over, so we get random amounts. If we pull this back down to 0 again, you can hear it's the same thing over and over and over. But bring that up again. Really slow to open, a little bit quicker. Super simple effect, but I find it's really effective to kind of create sort of more variation in your patches and how the synth is being played. And lastly, we have the shaper box on a simple percussive loop to kind of add a little bit more variation. I definitely have seen more than enough videos at the moment where people are kind of doing a video where they're showing all the loops they're using for a track. I mean, if you just want to use loops to create music, that's cool, but I think the real joy comes from sort of creating your own patterns and stuff like that. But without me being that old man yelling at a cloud, let's have a look at how I'm using it. So here is the finished sound with the automation. And then this is without the plugin at all. You can hear everything sort of at full volume. Gets quieter, comes back a little bit louder. And all I'm doing for this is we just have volume, we have little envelopes going along, and then I'm just changing the automation volume here for the dry and wet. So you can see here, the master mix, it's going up and down. So that's all I'm adjusting there. And then that's depending on what, if you want more or less. So if I come over to here, that's just the envelopes. And then as I sort of take more of it, we're getting more of the original loop. So using the two in conjunction, where we've got the envelopes within shaper box, it's just a simple volume automation here. using that in conjunction with the dry wet amount, we're getting variations with this and then variations of how much of that envelope that we're using. And then those two together kind of give us a more of a live loop. So if someone was actually playing those drums, it's not going to be perfect every time, but we're going to add those variations. And all I did for these was just kind of come across, put a bunch of clicks in, and then just pull down random bits. Maybe put another one in here, pull this one down, and just went across, kind of gave a random amount. So one thing you can do is we can go into the toolkit, automation select tool. We can, oh, that's the wrong one. We want automation select tool. We can select all of that. We can go Command C, choose a random spot here. And then we've given a random amount, so it's not happening perfect 16 bar loops. It's kind of happening random spots. We can maybe put it in here. And again, we've started it at a random spot, so it's going to be continually moving throughout the whole time that the loop is playing. So that is about it for today. Nice and quick one. Wanted to show 5 ways that you can use modulation to level up your sounds, and hopefully maybe this might sort of give you that nudge to push away from just putting a loop into your track and calling it a day. Maybe you might go that extra mile, add a little bit of modulation on there to kind of take the sounds from being so static into giving them a life of their own. So hopefully this has inspired you to create something today. Until next time, see you later.